On today's show, we've got our final mock draft. We're going to mock the full top 32 for today's episode of Locked On NHL Prospects.
You are Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this show, we break down everything prospects related for you 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. I'm Hadi Kalakash, Director of North American Scouting for Dobber Prospects, with Sebastian High, Director of European Scouting and Head Scout for Dobber Prospects. And on today's show, we're going to be breaking down our full top 32 final mock draft for the 2024 NHL Draft. We've mocked our personal top 32. What we did in previous episodes is we took the official Locked On mock draft, which includes all the teams, all the hosts from all the teams making their picks. We're going to kind of predict what we think is going to happen on draft day on today's show. So in the first segment, we're going to break down picks 1 through 10, obviously. Then we're going to 11 through 21, and then 22 to 32 in our final segment. So make sure to stick around to the end to find out which teams select which players. Before we get into that, though, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On NHL for $20 off your first purchase. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. Leave us a comment letting us know what you want us to talk about next. And if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, please leave us a rating review and make sure to make us your first listen of the day. So let's get things started right away here with our number one selection. No surprise here, it's Macklin Celebrini. 32 goals, 32 assists in 38 games with Boston University. Hobey Baker as the youngest player in the nation. There's no surprise here. I think we can just slip right through this. There's no doubt it's going to be Celebrini at 1. But who does Chicago pick at 2 in our opinion? Talk me through that.
Yeah, this is where things open up a little bit, but we have them going for the big right shot defenseman in Artyom Levshunov from Michigan State University in the NCAA, where he was a real two-way force this season, really developed his game a lot. He's an excellent skater, really good offensive instincts, has shown a level of offensive dynamism that shows some real top pair upside on top of being a really solid defensive zone player as well. There are some lapses of concentration, and there's still refinement to be had in his development, but there's a lot to like in his NHL projection. And Chicago wants to have their next stalwart on the blue line, and Levshunov could be just that. But at number 3, the Anaheim Ducks have a bunch of options, but we have them going for a big defenseman, don't we?
Yeah, the biggest one. Anton Salayev, the 6'7" left shot defenseman from Torpedo, goes to Anaheim. I think this is a matter of Anaheim really wanting size, really wanting reliability. Salayev brings both in spades. I think this is a no-brainer if they're looking for size. The combination of skating and length with Salayev is just absolutely ridiculous. He's going to be a defensive specialist. You're going to have to live with some brain farts with the puck, but I think the defensive game makes it more than worth it. We can slip right through to the Columbus Blue Jackets, and this is where it gets dicey. Columbus has a couple options at forward, but we think they're going to go for Ivan Demidov, the most dynamic forward from this draft. 6 foot, 196 pounds. Yes, 6 foot, 196 pounds. His measurements were updated. He's a biggish guy, and yeah, he's just got the best hands in the draft by far. I don't think there's any doubt there. Like, he's just so money with the puck. Great shooter, great handler, like across the board, his puck skills are ridiculous. So Columbus here at 4th overall is getting probably the highest offensive upside player in this draft, right?
For sure. Like, Demidov has that franchise level offensive production in him, in his potential. And we had some debate here at number 4 because we thought there were a decent amount of candidates, whether it be Gaten Lindstrom or Beckett Seneca even. The options were there, but in the end, this is a new management group led by Don Waddell. And if we can see what Carolina's been doing in the last decade, hoarding talent and elite skill is certainly one of the big things they enjoy doing. And we think that Demidov will be the swing taken at 4th overall. But at number 5, we have the Montreal Canadiens, who also could have considered guys like Beckett Seneca or even Zeev Buium or, TJ Ginla would be in the mix here. But we have them going with Caden Lindstrom, the big power forward centerman who played excellent hockey for the Medicine Hat Tigers in WHL last season when he was healthy. Had a bit of a herniated disc in his back, which took him out of action for a good chunk of the season, but he seems to be recovering very well from that. His medical records have been made available to all teams, so they can be confident in the decision to draft this player. But Lindstrom plays with zest. He plays with physicality, and and grittiness on top of being incredibly skilled. He has a very high upside. He's going to need a couple seasons to refine his game. He's not the most refined player just as of yet, but that developmental runway is so long. And the upside here could be a first-line power center, which is the type of asset that you dream of getting at 5th overall.
For sure. And now at 6th overall, we have the Utah HC, or whatever they're going to be called in the future, selecting Beckett Seneca, the 6', 380-pound right shot winger from the Oshawa Generals. Seneca rocketed up every board, and I think Utah's going to be looking for a big guy with skill. Seneca brings exactly that. He's the second best stick handler in this draft after Demidov. Like, there's just so much creativity and improvisational skill with Seneca that I think is a safe pick here at 6 overall for Utah. And, he's got upside. He's got a safe floor as a kind of defensive player as well. So there's a lot to work with here. Then at 7th overall, we have the Ottawa Senators picking up Sam Dickinson. And I think this is a pick that gave us the least trouble, the least headache. Dickinson's the most Ottawa Senators pick I can think of. And even though they do need right-handed Ds, Dickinson's safety, his physical profile, the way that he defends, the overall safety of the way that he plays without the puck makes him really good in terms of an option for Ottawa. But on top of that, he's got decent offensive upside. He scored 70 points in 68 games this year from a second power play. Like, there's upside here, and it all goes through his skating. He carries pucks up the ice, shoots in motion, passes in motion. The offensive side of his game is pretty refined, so I think Ottawa's going to like the two-way game with Dickinson and pick him up pretty quickly here. But then at 8th overall, we have a decent option here in Zeev Buium going to the Seattle Kraken. Talk me through his game and what makes him such a good fit with Seattle.
For sure. Like, Zeev Buium is a 6 foot, 185-ish pound left shot defenseman who put up 50 points through 42 NCAA games this season, which is, I believe, an all-time record for a freshman defenseman at the college level. And Buium's probably, at this point in time, the best defenseman eligible in this draft class. Like, if we're putting projection aside, he is the most refined, the most effective, the best defenseman in this draft class. But the question remains, is he going to remain in that stead in the following seasons? But he's so good on both ends of the ice. He's super escapable, so composed, so intelligent. He reads play so well on both sides of the puck. He's able to really create a bunch of advantages defensively. He's great in sparking the breakout with success and control. He's dangerous in the offensive zone, perhaps more as a distributor than a raw playmaker, but the playmaking flashes are bright as well. So there's a lot to like in his profile. He could be a first pairing defenseman at the end of the day, and Seattle needs some big blue line type of help in their system. But at 9th overall, we have the Calgary Flames, who go and just make the nepotism pick, which is also, in our opinion, the best player available in this slot. So no critique coming from our direction with TJ Ginla, right?
Absolutely. TJ Ginla is just exactly what Calgary needs in their system, not just in terms of revamping the kind of the desire to watch this team and see him develop and follow his dad's footsteps and the storylines there and all that. But just, I mean, overall, the skill set is insane. He's the best board player in this draft, bar none. The way he spins off of checks along the boards, the way he accesses open ice is ridiculous. Fantastic shot, but he's also a fantastic playmaker. Great energy, fantastic hockey sense. There are so many areas of his game that can hit. I think there's not really a chance that Iginla doesn't become a top 6 forward, which getting that at 9th overall is great value for the Calgary Flames. And we close things off here with our top 10 of the mock here with Consta Helenius going to the New Jersey Devils. And Consta Helenius, he's got an interesting skill set. I don't know about the upside, but I think that if New Jersey's looking for a safe bet to make the NHL and be kind of your second or third line center, like, he's up there, right?
Absolutely. And if you want him to learn the NHL game, there are few better players to teach it to him than Nico Hischier. Like, that is the stylistic mold of player that Helenius could become. And if you have a center depth of Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier, and Consta Helenius, you are set down the middle long term. And that also his ability to play well on the wing beyond just being a natural centerman. He's very effective playing on the wing when he is put in those positions. So being able to chip in a top 6 capacity, I think that Helenius could top out as like a David Krejci style of player in terms of like a second line all rounder who's not going to lead the team in points, but does so many things so well, who coaches, teammates, and fans alike adore having on their team. So while the offensive upside isn't super dynamic, there's so many things he does well, and he's so refined in his off puck and defensive games. There's so much to like with Helenius.
Absolutely, but that wraps things up for our top 10 in our first segment here. We're going to get to the second segment where we talk about picks 11 through 21, but just before, a quick word from our sponsors at Game Time. If you're looking to buy cheap tickets last minute to any event, Game Time is the best place to secure them. Game Time is safe, secure, and easy to use, and they're obsessed with saving you money. They've got a bunch of deals where you can get tickets up until the last minute before the event starts, and sometimes even an hour after it starts, you can still get tickets through Game Time. And like I said, they're obsessed with saving you money. They have flash deals, they have zone deals, they have last minute deals where you can save up to 60% off on buying last minute for any event, whether that's sports, comedy, theater, whatever it is, they've got you covered. And the Game Time guarantee makes sure that you get the best price for your tickets. If you find a ticket in the same section and row for less than what Game Time has to offer you, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL at checkout for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, really simple. Just create an account and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. So download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Alrighty, so let's move on to 11th overall. There are a lot of really interesting prospects that haven't been selected yet. So let's see what the Buffalo Sabres do at 11th overall. And with this selection, they select my favorite defenseman in the 2024 NHL draft, my personal best and highest ranked defenseman in the 2024 NHL draft, and again, make everyone look foolish with their early teens pick. So the Buffalo Sabres select Zane Parekh at 11th overall. Absolutely ridiculous value here at 11. And Zane Parekh, I think you could drop Zane Parekh on a top power play today, and he'd be one of the best power play defensemen in the NHL. Like, he's that good offensively. Everything he does with the puck translates incredibly well. He's always creating advantages. He's never hanging on to pucks too long or not long enough. His timing with the puck, his awareness, his ability to play pucks into areas, fantastic. Heavy shot, fantastic hands, super, super high hockey sense. For me, I think with Parekh, the upside is a point per game defenseman. The defense does need to come. I don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be. Some people are comparing him to Tony DeAngelo. I would not go that far, but I still think that there's enough value here with Parekh to make him a really good NHLer. Let's move on right away to 12th overall in Philadelphia, picking up Carter Yakimchuk, another right-handed defenseman. Kind of in the same mold in terms of how they both influence the game, but Yakimchuk's completely different in terms of what he brings to the table, right?
Absolutely. Aggression is the name of the game with Carter Yakimchuk, which makes him a pretty nice fit with the Philadelphia Flyers, whether it be defensive aggression and physicality and chasing hits at times, but never being afraid to throw the body around or take a penalty, or offensively with the puck on his stick. He's so daring. He's so aggressive as a puck handler. He tries to solve defenses all on his own at times, and there's a lot of refinement left to do in his game and habits that need to be learned and reads that have to be made more effectively and more quickly and more consistently than they are at this stage. The potential with him is really high. He has a lot of runway to develop into. There's no guarantee it's going to happen, but Philadelphia would be an organization that I could see very willing to take that risk. And if Yakimchuk's available in this slot, I know other teams will have him ranked into the top 6 or 7. That's a player that I could see Philadelphia being very giddy to select and add into their prospect cupboard.
Yeah, for sure. And, with Yakimchuk, it's all aggression, no composure. If he can work on that, he'll be a great player. At 13th overall, Minnesota picks up Berkeley Catton. This is absolutely ridiculous value from Minnesota. I think he's going to slip on draft day. I don't think teams are really big fans of his offensive cycle game, of his defensive game, of his motor, but he's the best puck carrier in this draft, and that includes Macklin Celebrini. Like, his carrying game in transition is ridiculous. I think that he's got so much upside with his shot, his handling, and his passing. So I don't know how he ends up at 13, but he does, and Minnesota picks him up pretty quickly, pretty easily. At 14th overall, the San Jose Sharks have their second selection of the draft, and they pick up Stian Solberg at 14. And this is a selection that makes sense for San Jose, and I think is likely to happen on NHL draft day, right?
Absolutely. They need to add prospects in multiple areas. And after adding Celebrini at forward at first overall, adding on defense would be really enticing. And with Yakimchuk and Parekh not quite making it to this slot, their options are kind of limited to Stian Solberg and Adam Jiricek. And I could see Solberg being a really enticing player for them here at 14th overall. The level of violence and mobility and offensive runway that Solberg has is super interesting. He's a rare high floor, high upside type of guy, and playing extremely good hockey at the World Championships against competition, including NHLers such as Connor Bedard, who he put on his butt a couple times in that game against Canada. there's a lot to like with Solberg, and the trajectory in his development is pointing skyward. He's off to a strong program in the SHL with Färjestad next season. I think this is a swing that many NHL teams are going to be willing to make inside the top 20, and San Jose gets their hands on him first.
For sure. And at 15th overall, we have Michael Bronzek-Nugard going to the Detroit Red Wings. An easy selection based on what they go for usually. This is the most Detroit Red Wings pick I can think of. Extremely translatable, extremely close to the NHL. 6'1", 205 pounds, and he plays with some of the best forechecking tools I've seen in this draft. Like, his forechecking ability is ridiculous. Great skater. He's got a lot of value, and I think Detroit is not going to think twice about it. This is a player I think could have played in the NHL on the fourth line this year, and the upside with him is, we're probably talking about a second line complementary winger who makes his teammates really, really good, defends for them, and can chip in with about 20 goals a season. So great value here from Detroit. At 16th overall, though, we have the prospect that everyone's been waiting to see where he lands. I think Cole Eiserman will go to the St. Louis Blues here at 16th overall. What do you think?
I think it makes sense. Eiserman brings a level of physicality to the mix that I think St. Louis would really appreciate, and St. Louis has been missing their big-time goal scorer since losing Vladimir Tarasenko, and I could really see Eiserman being enticing from that aspect. And they already have some fantastic playmakers in that organization, whether it be Jordan Kyrou or Robert Thomas. Like, they have some pieces there that can set up plays really, really well, and I think Eiserman would fit in quite nicely there. And St. Louis has always been an organization unafraid of selecting the players that they like to have, and those are often players that bring a level of physicality to the mix and a very specific strength, whether that be defensive solidity or goal scoring. And if you want a goal scorer, Cole Eiserman's your guy.
For sure. Let's move on to 17th overall, where we have Igor Chernyshov going to the Washington Capitals, a team that is in no way afraid to pick up Russians. And Chernyshov brings a lot of what Washington's looking for: physicality, pace, energy, defensive value. And he's a fantastic stick handler for his size. I really, really like the hands on him, especially when he's getting off the boards. Really translatable habits in the way that he gets off the boards and accesses the middle of the ice. So he brings a lot of different areas. I think at the worst, you're getting a fourth liner in Chernyshov, a guy who's going to chip in with a couple goals, but mainly be a defensive stalwart. But on top of that, he's got the power game. He's got the ability to round out his game, become a modern day power forward, and play on a second line, maybe even in the top six. So I like the value here from Washington. Now at 18th overall, the Chicago Blackhawks pick up Michael Hage, and this is a great fit for Chicago. He plays in their backyard with the Chicago Steel in the USHL and absolutely tore it up in the last stretch of the season. He scored 2 points per game in the last 15 or so games of the season and was absolutely fantastic. He's worked on his defensive game. He's worked on his playmaking. He was already a good goal scorer and puck carrier. He's really rounded out his offensive toolkit and became really a true two-way center. And that really showed in the last stretch of the season where he put it all together. I think he's a fantastic pickup here for Chicago. Now at 19th overall, we have a team finally taking the risk of picking Trevor Connelly. We have the Vegas Golden Knights selecting him here at 19th overall. What do you think of the selection? And what do you think Connelly could become in Vegas?
I mean, it's a fascinating selection considering that Vegas has typically drafted defensively responsible two-way forwards with their first-round draft selections. But with Connelly available at 19th overall and the insanely high upside that he has, he could boost his trade value from a 19th overall pick to like a top 10 pick easily within a year's time. And Vegas is all about maximizing value on draft day, and Connelly presents a fantastic option to do just that. As you mentioned, very divisive player. The decision-making still needs to come a long way. Like on the ice, for instance, he cost Team USA the gold medal with a really boneheaded penalty in the final stretch of the third period versus Team Canada of the 5-minute major, which completely ended the game. But at his best, he could be a dynamic top-line potential offensive driver. Like, the upside is fantastic with this player, and Vegas clearly would appreciate that. And another divisive high upside guy goes next up at 20th overall to the New York Islanders in Adam Jiricek, a player who missed much of this season to injury with a really rough knee injury at the World Junior Championships. But he's a pretty intelligent defenseman who's shown flashes of offensive upside, plays with vicious physicality, and still needs to fill out his frame to actually complement that desire to inflict violence on opponents. So the runway is interesting. The injury makes him a bit of a wild card in this draft class. He could go as high as 15th, as low as 35th. The range of possible outcomes on draft day and in his career is very wide. But there's a lot to like for him, and I think the Islanders would like his style of defenseman. But wrap up our second segment here at 21st overall, where the LA Kings go with a high motor playmaking two-way center in Jet Luchenko.
Absolutely, and Luchenko's a very good fit for LA here, mainly because they like their pace, they like their energy, they like their forechecking. Luchenko brings exactly that. He's a freak athlete with amazing. He's a freak athlete with amazing skating ability, really, really fluid with the puck, and I've really grown to like his playmaking over the year. He went from this kind of shut down defensive center to really being a full-on playmaking wizard in the offensive zone for Guelph, led them in points, did a great job with them over there. So I think that Luchenko's got decent upside and a really, really high floor. I'd be really shocked if Luchenko doesn't make the NHL in some capacity. So the LA Kings are getting a surefire value player here at 21st overall. But that wraps things up for our second segment. We'll get into our third here where we talk about the picks 22 through 32. We'll break down the selections here of Nashville, Toronto, and a lot more in just a second. But just before, a quick word from our sponsors here at Locked On NHL Prospects. Alrighty, so let's close things off here with picks 22 through 32 in our mock draft. We're going to go with Nashville here at 22nd overall, selecting Dean Letourneau, the massive 6'7", 205-pound center who played for the St. Andrews College system in the U18 prep level, and is associated with the Boston College team in the NCAA. So he's going to be playing college hockey next season in the NCAA First Division. Talk me through Letourneau's game and why he's the kind of greatest fit we can think of here for Nashville.
Nashville loves their high upside swings, and Letourneau is incredibly raw. He's all physical tools and projection at this stage in his career, and he's going to need like 4 to 5 to 6 seasons to develop into an NHL piece. But he moves well for his size. He doesn't have that big man awkwardness that most 6'7" plus players have on the ice, and he has a decent level of skill as well, whether it be the goal scoring from in tight or the handling ability in space. The playmaking game's really grown a lot this season, and the physicality is obviously a big plus tool as well. But there's a lot to like in his game. He's been a quick learner over the course of the season. Like, he seems to be a player who absorbs ideas and new systems pretty quickly. I thought he adapted quite well in his 2 USHL games this season, where he didn't score any points, but he was playing decent enough hockey, despite that being a pretty big leap in competition. Not as big as going from Canadian prep hockey to Boston College, but it's going to be interesting to see how he adapts. And Boston College needs size, and Letourneau certainly brings that.
For sure. It's going to be really interesting because the jump from U18 prep to NCAA, I think, is bigger than the jump from NCAA to NHL. Like, it's that big of a gap in competition.
It's huge.
But we'll move on to 23rd overall here in the Toronto Maple Leafs, selecting E.J. Emery, the big right-handed defenseman from the US NTDP. And E.J. Emery's exactly what they need. He's probably the best rush defender in this draft. His ability to close gaps is ridiculous. He's another freak athlete that absolutely dominated the combine in the NHL. And the range in his game, the skating ability combined with the lateral mobility, with the defensive game, with the stick work, is just amazing. He's not a physical crusher. He's able to throw his body around, make some hits, but he's mainly a player who will anticipate opposing routes and stifle them perfectly. And Toronto needs a stable shutdown defenseman. Emery brings exactly that. He's one of the best at it in the draft, so he's a no-brainer for me at 23rd overall to Toronto. I don't see any offensive upside, but I like the fit here with Toronto. At 24th overall, we have the Colorado Avalanche selecting Sacha Boisvert, the 6', 280-pound center of the Muskegon Lumberjacks. He played a great game this season. Great goal scorer, but added some power elements to his game. Became a lot more defensively responsible than he was last year. He's become kind of a true defensive center with a lot of power elements, so there's a lot to work with here. I just think his skating needs a lot of work, and I mean a lot of work. It's a real weakness in his game, but he's got enough to make it work at the NHL level. At 25th overall, we have the Ottawa Senators selecting Liam Greentree, the big right winger of the Windsor Spitfires in the OHL. Talk me through why this is a good fit for Ottawa and why this is their likely selection, but also why did Liam Greentree slip in this board?
There are two main reasons that he slipped. One, the skating. He is well subpar, potentially a worse skater than Sacha Boivaya, who we just talked about. But beyond that, he also had a bit of an iffy U18 World Championships where he was playing kind of like 12th, 13th forward minutes for Team Canada and wasn't really able to raise his draft stock. And that was his opportunity to show how he'd be able to play in an environment where he wasn't far and away the best player in the lineup, because Windsor was a rough team this season and he carried their offense, but we weren't able to see how he played in that environment with players of his skill level. But this is a player that I think the Ottawa Senators would really appreciate. He's very intelligent. He's big. He's physical. He has a wicked shot. He can score goals from distance and in tight, and he's really developed his playmaking game. There's a lot to like in him, and the growing power forward type of style in his game would be very enticing for a team like the Ottawa Senators. But at 26th overall, we have the Montreal Canadiens going for another player who has power forward elements in his game in terms of motor and intensity and a fire deep within his core and a decent level of skill to boot, with Yegor Surin.
Absolutely. I'm not as sold on Yegor Surin's upside, but I think Nick Bobrov's going to give a 6-minute speech about how this guy's money. I think it's very likely to happen on draft day. Yegor Surin's got so much to his game. He's a great shooter. He's a great power forward. Really, really good hands as well. And he's got some flashes of playmaking that really impress me. So in terms of skill, it's definitely there. I think the concerns are really with the awareness, the decision-making, and just overall the ability to read the game at a high level. He still very much thinks a game like an MHL prospect. So I think that overall there's a lot to work with here with Surin, but still a lot of room for development as well. Let's slip right into 27th overall in the Carolina Hurricanes, picking up Cole Baudouin, 6'2", 200-pound center of the Barrie Colts in the OHL. And his game's just all about just pure motor, pure energy, pure athleticism, right?
Absolutely. And if you want your long-term late career Jordan Staal replacement, this is your guy. This is your bottom six intense defensive specialist who plays with physicality, is a great forechecker, can be a penalty killer and a second power play type of contributor, and overall just elevates his line mates very easily because he does all of the dirty work and he does it with glee. He's a fantastic athlete on top of all of that. He's deadlifted 400 pounds. He laps his teammates when he's doing like short or long distance races against them on the track. And while he's not a mechanically gifted skater, his intense high stride rate really shows that speed that he has off the ice as well. So a bunch to like with Cole Baudouin. He's so projectable. But at 28th overall, we have the Calgary Flames going with another projectable and pretty athletic type of right shot defenseman here with Charlie Elick, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And Charlie Elick makes a lot of sense here for Calgary. They're going to be looking for size and grit and physicality and intensity, and Charlie Elick brings all of that. I thought his U18 Worlds tape showed a side of him that I really liked. This more kind of composed and poised type of, wait and see type of defenseman instead of chasing hits and being in your face and crushing through guys and pinning them against the board. He was very much like using his stick, thinking the game rather than kind of using his physicality. So there's a lot of decent value here in Charlie Elick. But talk me through Dominic Badinka's game, because he's our pick here at 29th overall for Dallas, and I think he's a great fit.
Absolutely. Badinka brings a level of refinement in his game that few other draft eligibles can match. He played really intelligent, defensively sound, and physical hockey at the SHL level with the Malmö Redhawks. He's a 6'3", 185-pound player, and he's a great breakout passer as well, which is something that the Dallas Stars will inevitably really appreciate in his game. There's not the same level of hesitation or panic that a guy like Leon Bixel has shown in his career, and including in his draft year as well. So a lot to like with Badinka. His projection is likely that of a bottom four defenseman, potentially on the second pairing. But they don't need him to become a top pairing type of guy. They already have a couple guys in their system that can fulfill those roles. But at 30th overall, we have the New York Rangers going for a young and decently like physical power forward in Emil Hemming.
Absolutely. I think this is a great fit. The Rangers are going to be looking for safety in terms of their selection. Emil Hemming certainly brings that, but he also brings a decent amount of upside with that goal-scoring ability. He's got a high-end shot. His release is ridiculous. In motion, one-timer, wrist or snapper, you name it, he's got it all. He's got the abilities to kind of influence the game at a high level in terms of his ability to consistently get open. But on top of that, he's a really good defensive player. He's really good in terms of positioning. He's one of the highest motors in this draft. I really like the intensity and the positioning defensively, so you've got a decent amount amount of things to work with here. Let's flip right into 31 overall here with the Anaheim Ducks selecting Sam O'Reilly. They wanted a bottom six right shot forward. O'Reilly is exactly that. And O'Reilly grew on me a lot as the year went on. He's really defensively responsible, really capable in terms of positioning. He's one of the best off-puck movers in the draft with great playmaking, decent goal scoring, decent hands. So in terms of puck skills, you've got something to work with, but I think he projects really well as your bottom six, insulator, defensive kind of penalty killing specialist. He's got a lot of value. And let's close things off here with our rankings at 32nd overall with the Philadelphia Flyers picking up Andrew Basha. What's the fit here? What's the process for Philly picking him up with the last pick of the draft of the first round? And why is he such a good prospect and worth a first round pick in your opinion?
Yeah, I think, well, first and foremost, he's a bit of a faller here. He could go a lot higher than this. So I think Philly would be really enticed by the fact that this is a player with a high level of forechecking upside. He's really intense. He's a fantastic checker at both ends of the ice. He plays with that fire that you want Philadelphia Flyers to be playing with on the ice. And on top of that, this year, he's really expanded his on-puck game. He's a really great skater. He plays with pace and speed, and he's really developed his transition game as a puck carrier. He's shown flashes of dynamism and playmaking creativity at his highest speeds. On the cycle, he gets involved with a really intense style of play, and he brings value in all three zones, which is a very important thing for the Philadelphia Flyers. But that wraps up our mock draft, our top 32. And I'm very excited to see how things end up actually going on draft day, because I'm hoping for maybe a 40% success rate in our guesses here, because mock drafts always go out the window pretty quickly, but it's always a very fun exercise.
For sure. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments what you think of our mock draft. What do you think your team? What do you think your team's pick that we have projected is in terms of fit for your team? And if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, please leave us a rating and review, and make sure to make us your first listen of the day. For your second listen of the day, make sure to check out Locked On Sports Today. They've got all your news and updates about what's going on around sports on YouTube's first 24/7 sports channel. And make sure to tune in for our next shows as we close off the month of June and head to the NHL draft. This has been Hadi Kalakash, Director of North American Scouting for Dobber Prospects, with Sebastian High, Director of European Scouting for Dobber Prospects and Head Scout. And we hope you tune in next time.